Alright everybody, this is just going to be a brief feeding video. At least I assume it's going to be brief. You never know with me. Get to talking and I wind up rambling on about something or other. But ideally we are just going to have a look at my Gourami tank, and I'm going to throw some sinking granules in there. Usually gets everybody pretty active. Now I am notoriously an overfeeder. I know this. I am going to be shooting a video probably tonight talking a little bit about this and that, and I'm going to talk about my feeding habits and tank maintenance and that sort of thing. But I have not actually fed this tank in 4 or 5 hours, so for this tank that's a long time, and I'm hoping when the sinking granules go in there you will get a glimpse of my red-tail loach, or it is sometimes known as a blue loach. It doesn't come out very often. If you do see it, it will be brief. It's a fairly large loach. It's much bigger than any of the loaches I've got in the tank, including the clowns. And he usually hides in the back right-hand side of the tank. So keep that in mind. If you do see an unexpected fish dart around, that's what it is. Otherwise, what to look for will be on the bottom left of the screen. You will see my striped Raphael come out more than likely. Of course, you're going to get tons of activity of my loaches and my gouramis. And I also have a couple of bumblebee jellies in there. I got one bumblebee jelly and one South American bumblebee that is very, very rarely seen. So you never know, you might get a little look at that too. So all this is sinking granules. I do try to mix the food up. Sometimes I put the algae wafers in, sometimes I'll do flakes. But I definitely have to get stuff down to the bottom. I have a lot of fish there that are bottom feeders. So I know that looks like a lot, but it won't last very long. So there's the striped Raphael. I knew he would come out. He's my little pork pie in there. He comes out as soon as there's food immediately. And as you can see, this is why he's a little pork pie, because I'm a very, very generous feeder. I'm a very heavy-handed when it comes to putting the food in the tank. And that's okay. You can do that if you're prepared to deal with the consequences of doing that. I'm putting a ton of organics in my tank. I know that. I understand how the nitrogen cycle works. I understand that the more food I put in there, the more waste I produce. I overfilter the tank. I do frequent water changes. I do frequent large water changes. I'm scrupulous about keeping check on my water parameters as far as testing to make sure everything's within safe levels and limits. So you can have an overstocked tank, as this one technically would probably be considered. I think of it as a very heavily stocked tank, not necessarily an overstocked tank. But, you know, again, if you're willing to put the extra effort into making sure you keep the tank clean, and if you've got enough space to provide adequate habitat for all the inhabitants of the tank, and everybody gets along and nobody's trying to eat each other, then you can do it. You can put more than the 1 inch of fish per gallon of water. I just did a video yesterday where I talked at length about that. I feel like it was a little bit of a rambly video, but that's okay. It's really just meant to get a conversation started and just pose the idea that the inch of fish per gallon of water rule is no rule at all. It's barely even a guideline. It's just sort of this sort of starting point to get you thinking about what you're going to be putting in your tank. And in this case, I do have a large bioload in this tank, but it's a 55-gallon tank, and I have a filter that's supposed to be equipped for a 150-gallon tank, and I actually dedicate 3/4 of the filtration just to biofiltration. So I do account for the fact that I have such a large number of fish in this tank, and everybody gets along. I did have to sort some issues out in the past. The bumblebee jelly cat in there I mentioned sort of had to learn the hard way that otocinclists were not on the menu, but I do have a video, a very brief video, of one of those bumblebee jellies attempting to eat an oto. That was the one and only time I ever saw that happen. I think he learned pretty quickly that that is not a fish you want to try to put in your mouth. Very, very spiky, nasty little fish are the otocinclists. Nothing really bothers them, or at least twice. So the video I'm going to be starting on very soon, I'll give you a little bit of a promo since we're still watching the last little bit of activity as the pellets are, or the sinking granules are rapidly disappearing. I want to talk about what I call tank personality. And tank personality in the most simplistic of terms, could be thought of as the fish tank you keep should reflect your personality. Again, that would be a starting point from where we will go when we talk about tank personality. It'll have everything to do with the kinds of fish you keep, to the maintenance schedule you're willing to maintain, or again, just the type of personality you have. If you're the person that's going to be in there scrubbing and scraping and cleaning all the time, well, that needs to be taken into consideration as to what type of fish you're going to keep. So the tank personality video is probably going to be another one that's sort of a bit on the rambling side. It's just going to be kind of me talking about me and my tanks and the way I keep them, and I'll use myself as the example. And again, it'll be just something to get a conversation started and open the door for people to discuss different aspects of their tank personality and the way they like to keep fish and the types of fish they like to keep, etc. Again, I always want my channel to be a welcoming place. I want it to be very much of a community atmosphere where people feel like they can meet each other, or just, you know, make a comment, say hello, tell me about your tank. That's certainly fine and welcome. I do my best to get back to everybody. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap that up. I think pretty much everybody's done. They're all starting to give me the hairy eyeball, waiting to see if I'm going to put any more food in there for them. But I am not, at least not for the moment. I'll probably give them one last feeding before the night's over. Like I said, I'm very heavy-handed when it comes to the food, which is also why I have such enormous fish. So there are benefits to feeding as heavily as I do. I don't mind the extra maintenance and extra filtration needs as far as that goes, but the result is I really do get big, beautiful fish. I get compliments all the time about how huge my fish are for what types of fish they actually are. So that is because I feed so heavily. You want big fish, you got to give them a lot of food. Give them a lot of food, you got to do a lot of tank maintenance. So I'm starting to ramble. I'm going to call that good. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you're not already. You get lots of good stuff like this, and you never know what you're going to get from me when you do get it. So subscribe now. You won't miss anything. Thank you for watching this one. I'll see you on the next one.